There you are.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. And thank you for including Champion the Challenges today.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about it. And it's a great time to talk about stroke awareness and really heart health, just given that it's February and the focus has been about paying attention to your body, listen to the warning signs. And we talk a lot about heart attacks and heart disease, but a lot of times we don't talk about strokes. And I'm willing to bet that most people that are tuning into this conversation that we're going to have know somebody in their life that has suffered a stroke, or knows somebody who knows somebody that has suffered a stroke. It's incredibly prevalent, unfortunately. And I'm so grateful that Deb and Bob Shaw are here to share their story, Deb, you in particular, and what has inspired you to come up with this wonderful program that's helping other victims of stroke. So Deb, I guess I want to start with you. Tell me about what happened. You are a 3-time stroke survivor. So tell me about that first experience and what happened.
Well, Bob was out of the country and I was at home with my 90-year-old father-in-law, and we did not know enough about it. It was in the middle of the night. I was sleeping and I reached a point where I really could not get out of bed. And quite a few hours had passed, and I was suffering an ischemic stroke that was at the brainstem. It was called a Pons ischemic stroke. And just too many hours had gone by, and getting me to the hospital, it was too late to give me a TPA IV. By the time Bob got back in town that evening, he was flying overseas. I was in the hospital, and they determined that it was a stroke that affected my whole right side. So I was wheelchair bound. I couldn't walk. Using, my left hand was pretty useless. But that was 5.5 years ago. I'm thankful to be recovering from that first attack.
Wow. And you had 2 other episodes after that, right?
I did. I had the second stroke actually 3 months later, right in front of my doctor at a follow-up. All of a sudden, he looks at Bob and he looks at me, and he's asking me questions. And he looks at Bob and he goes, "This isn't right. She's not quite answering me correctly." And I was suffering a second attack right in front of both of them. And he said, "Bob, get Deb to the ER." Fortunately, it was just 2 minutes away. And Bob got me there right away.
Wow. And what did the doctors say? What were your risk factors? Was there anything related to health? I mean, in terms of taking care of yourself, or was this something that they believed was somehow genetic, or just unfortunately how your body was made?
Well, it was very unfortunate that, after the second stroke occurred, they ran a whole gambit of tests on me for a solid week while I was in the hospital. No one in my family has ever had a stroke. So it was just one of those things. They claim that a statistic is about 40% of the folks that survive a stroke never know why they even got them.
Wow. And did you find that, was there something that you could have done beforehand in terms of a test you could have taken that would analyze your risk factor, or is this something that unfortunately sometimes just happens?
It unfortunately does sometimes just
happen. It's interesting because they'll say that diabetes, AFib, and high blood pressure, and then obviously diet are kind of 4 primary reasons.
Right.
And AFib, speaking of the heart, is one of those very unfortunate things. In many cases, a lot of people will have AFib and not know it. So doctors are now getting more curious as they're doing the physicals, and they may do some deeper tests, especially if AFib runs in the family.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your recovery. I know it's been very challenging, but you've really pushed through it and come out the other side improved. Tell us about it.
Certainly have, Elizabeth. Thank you. The third stroke was happening actually when we came home from a dinner, and I completely went blank, and that's when I lost the eyesight. But it was the concussion that fortunately burst the stroke that was happening in my retina, and then my eyesight started to come back. So after these three strokes, Bob and I really started to put our heads together. And, you know, by this time it was about 4.5 years. And we just started to assemble all of my notes from all the therapies, from physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then what else is out there. And, you know, I started doing healthcare virtual reality. I was doing cranial acupuncture. I was doing aquatic therapy. And so all these things, we really had to be our own advocate and search for more. I was
Right.
like on this path of, I have got to overcome all of this, because we just love to do so many things. And this kind of, you know, had me wheelchair bound. And then I started setting goals and going, okay, what does it take to get into, you know, a walker? And then to, you know, a 4-point cane, a single point cane. And it was all the therapy classes. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy was critical as well.
Wow.
So we really did go on this path of everything possible. How can we make this a better life for me after these three strokes?
And these therapies, they sound fascinating, but very much off the beaten path. I mean, when I've done lots of stories about stroke and heart disease and heart attacks, and you know, most of the talk is about different medications, some therapy, but certainly nothing to the realm of virtual reality. And I know a lot of folks are tuning in thinking, I don't know, if something like that happened to me, I don't even know where I would go and what I would do, or even if I could afford to have access to all that, which is why you developed this incredible program that is there for other stroke survivors to access, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and part of it is we realized, Elizabeth, as we would go, Deb would talk about, oh, I did cranial acupuncture, and people would go, I didn't even know that was available for stroke.
Yeah.
And a number of these therapies now are covered by insurance in varying degrees. And so the good news is, if you're aware of them and you can bring them up to your doctor, and they have to obviously give you the okay. But the other thing we found in research was there's an old thinking that 6 months after you've had a stroke, and many you'll hear in chatter that, you know what, wherever you're at in your rehab, where you're at 6 or 7 months is probably all the better you're going to get. And that's not at all the case, because the brain plasticity, as they've determined, will continue to rebuild itself. The brain in some ways is very smart, but it's lazy. So you have to push it really hard. And we found with Deb that using a combination of all these therapies really exercised her brain in different ways. And we think helped really cause her to improve beyond what some would have thought was possible.
It didn't allow me to be lazy.
Yeah,
and
no.
the endurance building was so critical as well.
And is this something that you're going to have to do for the rest of your life, or was this something that you needed to do for this very concentrated period of time to get yourself back to where you wanted to be?
Well, it does come in spurts. So getting back into society was first and foremost, in getting back to the community, being able to go out and be able to shop. And, you know, eventually I'm hoping to be able to drive again. And so it does go through these spurts, because I will want to do every bit of all of these therapies again, but I also want to live my life. And I want to be able to travel with Bob and do things. And we have 2 fox terriers that we love to take out and, you know, walk around town and do things with. And, you know, I have my exciting little hobbies. I love hummingbirds.
Right.
And so I have them all over the house outside. And I love to bird watch. So in order to do things like that, you have to sacrifice some therapies so that you can get back to the finer things that you love in life and why you're working so hard.
No question. And have the doctors said that these therapies are going to hopefully prevent another stroke from happening as well?
Well,
they haven't necessarily said that, because I think they have to be, they're cautious of, making any forward-looking statements. But they were very encouraging. And, the other kind of unsung hero in many cases on this whole journey were the therapists themselves. They're gifts from God to us. They're like a combination of a teacher and a coach together, because they've got to listen and figure out where you're at on your journey. But then, they pushed Deb, and they really, the first time we went to dinner and she wore shoes that she didn't have to have her brace on, she's getting out of the car and I'm taking a video of her walking across the parking lot, and we're sending it to the therapist to say, hey, we did it. She did it.
And they love that feedback because
Yes.
I work with them on my goal setting. Like one of the things early on through the stroke, we were invited to a wedding and I was really nervous and I was frail. And Bob helped me put on false eyelashes, but then he did.
Because she couldn't get her one hand up, and I go, okay, you got to show me how to do this.
I've been very impressed, Bob.
I'll figure it out.
That's multi-talented.
Yeah, it's on video somewhere, but we keep it.
And so I told my therapist, okay, this is going to be at a ranch, so I have to be able to walk on gravel. I have to walk on thicker, higher grasses and uphill. So that was, goals that I had to have my therapist help me accomplish.
And the beauty of it is out of the gym at the hospital, and they're in the parking lot, they're walking across the grass. They went down to the park and met her there. And so the beauty of it is they said, hey, tell us where you want to be in life, and let's build the therapy around that, as opposed to just, generic therapy. So it was awesome.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to talk to you about this organization, Champion the Challenges, that you founded based on your experience through going through all these different therapies and helping other stroke survivors not only mentally prepare themselves for what the journey ahead, but also have access and just the knowledge of the therapies and options that are out there. So tell us a little bit about this organization.
Absolutely. Well, I could not find a website like ours anywhere. So Bob and I put our heads together. We started making these small little booklets that all are therapy inspired and put them together in a short, small little booklet format that opens free on the website as flip books. And then we also provide them in print to anyone who requests them for free. But it's one site that provides inspiration and hope that this is a stroke survivor that has made it 3 times. And I'm sharing my experiences and what worked for me. Look into it yourself. Ask your doctor, is it right for you? But also the technology, everything that is out there that I have tried and I have enjoyed, and I saw improvement in my endurance and my ability to get back into, real world activities was so critical. And how better than to know that I'm a survivor and I'm sharing all this with someone. And, we're writing stories that stroke survivors want to share. And they're like, but how do we get this out there? We'll write the story for you. You just tell us what happened. And, someone is always going to learn from someone else and be inspired by someone else. And
it's cathartic to hear somebody else went through it.
Yes.
And I can imagine that. I can imagine it's become very popular, given that there are so many stroke survivors out there that are frankly sort of daunted by this prospect of recovery.
Yes.
The other thing that we found is the family is a part of this journey. And in many cases, if they're across the country, they're kind of like, hey, how do I help my brother or mom and dad or, you know, one of my siblings? What is it I can do? And so a lot of the information we put on there gives them kind of their role and how they can contribute and how they can be involved in helping the survivor along with the caregivers. So it creates kind of this whole ecosystem because everybody plays a role in helping them improve. And frankly, the other thing, a lot of people have said, you know what, I've now become more knowledgeable. It's something that we talk about at work, or I had a friend that was experiencing this and we called 911 and got them it just brings the awareness. People are more plugged into the early warning signs to take action.
We give them all kinds of tips on the website, like thinking about writing down all the medicines and how much of it you take, to all your doctor's names. We make it fun around the dining room table with tongue twisters to get the family involved in getting, you know, engagement with the survivor. So many times we run into people that are all by themselves and they're like, I just don't know what to do. You know, I may not have a Bob, and you know, how can I persevere? And so that's where these booklets and inspiration and hope and love really comes through, I think, on Champion the Challenges, because there's something there for everyone to engage with a stroke survivor.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that you both are from Los Gatos and here in the Bay Area. And I know there's a lot of great medical resources out here, but it seems like there needs to be more information out there for stroke survivors, and that's what you're providing. Is there any other service that you'd like to see the hospitals do or treatment centers do for folks that maybe don't have the access to the type of treatment that you got?
Yeah, well, it's funny because we talk about this all the time. One of the areas that I think needs to be explored, and there's a statistic that many people that are scheduled for rehab, if they're scheduled for 25 rehabs, they may only go to 10 or 11 of them. And the reasons they don't continue to go is transportation is very difficult. And it has to be scheduled in advance. They've got a very tight window of when they can be picked up. And so anything that can be done in helping bring awareness to this and offer programs that will be very service oriented for those that need to get to and from therapy. And in a lot of cases, Elizabeth, you may have folks that are not only in a wheelchair, but there are patients at Good Samaritan that are friends with us, that they have their canine companion that has to come with them. So there's a lot of there's a lot of different things that have to be managed, but helping them get to and from therapy would be a real blessing for a lot of these folks.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you getting the word out will inspire hopefully an organization to come forward and be a resource that I'm sure that you will connect many of your visitors to as well. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your story, Deb. I know that you have been on an incredible journey, and it's so inspiring to see that the hard work and the dedication and the perseverance really paid off. And we're just so happy to see you healthy and to see your loving spouse by your side there, Bob, who can put on fake eyelashes. And it's just very inspiring. A true love story on near Valentine's Day, and also a great message about stroke and stroke survival, and great resources for people who need them out there that may not know that those types of resources are out there. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you. And have a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Thank you. And you too. Best of health and luck to both of you.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.